There's many other ways in which big data can actually help us to make our cities more sustainable. For instance, what we are doing now with the city of Amsterdam is for the first time to be able to describe in spatial terms very, very high accuracy emissions both from traffic and from buildings. Today, cities know a lot about emissions in the aggregate at the end of the year and say for the whole city. But it's very difficult to get information at high spatial resolution and high temporal resolution. And only if you got that information, we can start understand if the policies we put in place actually work or not. In the past, many researchers have studied cities just by looking at the image of the city, visual images of the city, and analyzing them. But in the past it was quite time consuming. You had to do that manually to annotate images, for instance, to count people on images or on video footage. Today, all of that can be automated. It can be automated with different types of artificial intelligence, in particular using deep learning. And when you do that, then you get a new dimension in order to understand the built environment. Let me give you just one example which is related to sustainability. We've actually been doing a global map, a global survey of trees in cities, just by using images from Google Street View. Google Street View actually captures street view images of cities, almost every street in most cities around the planet, every few months. And you can take those images and then analyze them, segment them using artificial intelligence, and for instance, look at trees, the number of trees, the type of trees, and then you can look at that and use that in order to do urban climatology models in order to better understand what happens in streets. If you run a lab on cities, really you cannot just be in the lab in an office, you can really need to be in cities. And that's why over the past few years we started creating satellite labs. We've got a great collaboration in Amsterdam, it's called AMS, it's together with TU Delft and the University of Wageningen. And over there, for instance, we've been focusing on mobility, on autonomous mobility. But guess what? Autonomous mobility in Amsterdam, not really on road. In the city center of Amsterdam, you don't have much asphalt, you got a lot of water. And so we started thinking about autonomous, not cars, but autonomous boats. We call them rowboats. We started 4 or 5 years ago, and now there's a one-to-one prototype being tested. You can try it next time you're in Amsterdam. It's really a platform. You can use it to move people around, to move goods around, for urban services, think about garbage collection, but also to create like a temporary infrastructure in the city. Imagine those rowboats, they become like floating pixels, and you can assemble them for a temporary bridge or for a floating stage for a concert. So kind of a dynamic responsive architecture for the city, which is controlled again by data and AI. Big data can tell us a lot of things about cities, in particular about sustainability in cities, but also not only environmental sustainability, also about social sustainability. A project we're doing with KTH in Sweden, in the city of Stockholm, for instance, is use big data in order to look at integration and segregation in the city. So, what is the probability you meet people different from yourself when you're moving in the city or when you're connecting with them online? And it becomes very important because our cities still have what we call liminal ghettos. They're not the ghettos of the past, the visible ghettos, but somehow they're even more insidious because they're non-visible, but they're still fault lines in our cities. And really what we can do once we understand those fault lines is then put in place actions in order to bridge them and make sure the cities fulfill their primordial function, which is to make sure that together we are more than each of us individually. Think about the way to live and work 20 years ago and how they changed versus today. Again, the way we do our daily jobs, we go shop, we move in the city and do other things. All those changes were brought by new technologies. Well, today, those very changes are entering the space of the city. We could say that the internet is becoming Internet of Things. There is a convergence between the digital and physical world, and that is radically changing the way we can understand cities through big data, artificial intelligence, many other tools, the way we can design cities using this new knowledge, and ultimately, how we can live in urban spaces in a different way. And so that's what we are doing in Amsterdam by using a lot of artificial intelligence, deep learning, in order to get a real-time sense of all the vehicles going through the city, and also the buildings, looking in real time at the energy leaks from buildings using thermal infrared, looking at smart meter data. We're combining all of this big data, in order to better understand emissions in cities at a high spatio-temporal resolution.